Right now, across a wide stretch of the central and northern United States, the atmosphere is lining up in a way that points to something more persistent than the isolated severe weather days we have seen earlier this year. This is not about a single afternoon of storms that hits and then moves on, giving towns time to clear debris and check on neighbors before the next system arrives. Instead, what is taking shape looks like a connected series of rounds, each one feeding off the effects of the one before it. The ground gets soaked, homes and power lines already weakened take another hit, and people who thought the worst had passed find themselves dealing with fresh damage in the middle of the night or the next evening. That kind of back-to-back pattern is what forecasters are watching closely right now from the Dakotas eastward through Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, and along the Great Lakes. The difference matters because recovery time disappears. When the first round brings heavy rain, the soil cannot absorb what comes next. When early tornadoes or straight-line winds knock out electricity, the second round arrives while crews are still working to restore it. Communities do not get the usual breathing room to assess what happened and prepare for what might come. That is the core of why this setup stands apart from the individual outbreaks that moved through the southern plains earlier in the season. To see why the northern tier is especially worth paying attention to this month, look back at what unfolded almost exactly a year ago in the same general corridor. On June 20th of last year, an extremely powerful tornado rated EF5 moved through Enderlin, North Dakota. Wind estimates inside that storm climbed above 210 miles per hour. That single day was part of a larger outbreak sequence that ran from the 19th through the 22nd and produced around 40 confirmed tornadoes across the northern plains. Later in that same system, a line of storms swept through Beltrami County in Minnesota and brought wind gusts measured at 120 miles per hour, numbers more typical of a major hurricane. 6 people lost their lives during those few days, and damage reached hundreds of millions of dollars. The event showed that when the pattern loads up in June, the northern plains and upper Midwest can produce violent weather on a scale that usually gets associated with states farther south. June has long been the peak month for tornado activity in that northern corridor, just as late April and May tend to be the busiest farther south. This year, the broader pattern is reinforcing that shift. A strong El Niño has kept extra moisture streaming northward from the Gulf of Mexico, while an amplified jet stream continues to send shortwave disturbances across the region. Those ingredients have already helped push warning counts and tornado numbers higher than average in many areas, and the focus is now sliding northward as summer begins. Recent outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center and other long-range guidance have highlighted continued severe weather and flood potential in waves rather than in one concentrated burst. The setup itself has 4 main pieces that keep reappearing. First, deep moisture is surging into the lower levels, with dew points climbing into the upper 60s and low 70s across the target zone. Second, daytime heating and the contrast along the front are creating strong instability, measured by CAPE values high enough to support explosive thunderstorm growth. Third, wind shear in the 25 to 30 knot range is helping storms organize and stay strong for longer periods. Fourth, a stalled frontal boundary is acting as a repeating focus, giving each new shortwave the lift it needs to fire. When those 4 elements line up across the northern tier in June, the result is often afternoon supercells followed by organized lines of storms that can produce damaging winds well into the overnight hours. That repeating structure is already visible in the forecasts. The first wave is moving in now, driven by energy rotating out of the northern Rockies. Storms are expected to develop across parts of the Dakotas and eastern Nebraska before spreading into western and central Iowa. In North Dakota, communities including Bismarck, Fargo, Minot, Grand Forks, Jamestown, and Devils Lake sit on the northern edge of this initial round. In South Dakota, Sioux Falls, Aberdeen, Pierre, Huron, Watertown, and Mitchell are in the path. Eastern Nebraska, with Omaha, Lincoln, Norfolk, Columbus, Fremont, Hastings, Grand Island, and Kearney, is squarely in the corridor. Across Iowa, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Sioux City, Council Bluffs, Waterloo, Iowa City, and Dubuque represent the heart of the target zone for this opening wave. Large hail, strong straight-line winds, and tornadoes are all possible as this energy moves through. A second wave is expected to follow within roughly 5 to 7 days as the next shortwave rotates around the same large-scale trough. This round shifts the main focus eastward. Minnesota communities such as Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, Mankato, Rochester, St. Cloud, Wilmar, and Alexandria will be watching closely, along with Wisconsin cities including Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Wausau, Rhinelander, and Sheboygan. Northern and central Illinois, with Chicago, Rockford, Peoria, Springfield, and Galesburg in the broader corridor, and lower Michigan areas around Grand Rapids, Traverse City, Cadillac, Flint, Lansing, and Saginaw are also in the window. June remains the climatological peak for tornado season in these states, and the pattern that produced last year's violent weather across the northern plains is reappearing in similar form. A third wave, still the most uncertain in exact timing and strength, but potentially the most widespread, is being flagged for the middle of the month. If it develops along the lines suggested by historical analogs, the corridor could stretch from the Dakotas all the way across the Ohio Valley and into the Great Lakes. That would place Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio all under the same general threat umbrella for several days. One useful comparison comes from late June 2023, when a similar multi-day sequence produced 118 tornadoes across the central and eastern United States, including a record 37 tornadoes in Colorado on a single day. An EF3 tornado struck Matador, Texas, with estimated winds near 165 miles per hour and claimed 4 lives. Total damage from that week exceeded $5 billion and roughly 700,000 people lost power at some point. The atmospheric ingredients in 2023 shared several characteristics with what is unfolding now, which is why forecasters are treating the possibility of a broad mid-June round seriously, even while exact details remain fluid. One hazard that often gets less attention is the potential for a derecho. When individual supercells grow into a fast-moving, organized line of storms along a front, the result is a long swath of damaging winds. To qualify as a derecho, the damage path needs to stretch at least 400 miles with numerous gusts of 58 miles per hour or higher along that entire length. In the strongest cases, the swath can reach 1,000 miles in a single overnight period. Last year's June sequence also generated a derecho that brought 120-mile-per-hour gusts into northern Minnesota. The same 4 ingredients are present again, raising the chance that afternoon tornado-producing storms could transition into a fast-moving wind event after dark. Running underneath every wave is the flash flood threat created by already saturated ground. The Memorial Day storm system left soils wet across a broad swath from Texas into the Ohio Valley, with rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour recorded in many places and multiple flash flood emergencies issued. Rivers remain near or above flood stage from Kansas City to Pittsburgh, and the ground has not had enough dry days to recover fully. When the current sequence drops repeated rounds of heavy rain, especially if storms train along the same segment of the front, localized totals of 4 to 6 inches in just a few hours become possible on top of that already wet ground. Even areas trending drier in the broader monthly outlook can see flash flooding where the heaviest training storms set up. The contrast between a drying signal in some spots and rapid onset flooding in others is one of the more challenging parts of this pattern. For anyone living in the northern tier corridor, the practical steps are straightforward but important to take now rather than during the first sirens. Know where you will shelter if a warning is issued, ideally an interior room on the lowest floor away from windows. Keep a weather radio or a reliable phone alert system active every night during the sequence, because the strongest wind events often arrive after midnight when most people are asleep. Check on neighbors, especially in communities across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa that are entering their peak tornado season window after a spring that was quieter than what Oklahoma and Kansas experienced. If you have family or friends in those areas, share the information so they have time to prepare instead of reacting in the moment. The sequence is still organizing, and exact details will shift as each shortwave approaches, but the overall architecture, multiple waves, limited recovery time, saturated soils, and the full range of severe hazards is already visible in the data. The corridor from the Dakotas through the Great Lakes is stepping into its primary severe weather window for the year. Watching the updates as each wave evolves, staying ready between rounds, and looking out for one another will make the difference in how communities come through the next several weeks. Before we close, I want to leave you with a thought that has stayed with me through many of these events. Last June, families in Enderlin, North Dakota, heard the warning for that EF5 and made the right choice to shelter in time. Other families across that same sequence did not get that chance. 6 lives were lost, and 6 communities still carry that weight. When patterns like this return, the reminder that we are not facing any of it alone matters. Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Through every round that develops, through every night the line of storms charges eastward, through every moment spent in a shelter, that promise holds. He does not step away. Thank you for taking the time to watch and understand what is unfolding. If this information helps you or someone you know, please share it. Hit the like button, subscribe, and keep your alerts on as the weeks ahead develop. Stay sheltered when warnings are issued, stay informed, and above all, keep looking out for the people around you. Have a blessed day.